Thank you for that. We were having fun practicing pronouncing my name yesterday evening. It is an Irish name. Thank you for having me. It's my first time in Finland, and I'm very excited to be in Helsinki, so thanks for having me. I want to tell you a little bit about, I suppose, the story of the Irish Times and the journey of the Irish Times so far. To give a little bit of background, the Irish Times is a 160-year-old media organisation. It started out primarily in newspapers. The population of Ireland would be quite similar to Finland, so there's similarities there. And the Irish Times is actually the first publisher in Ireland or the UK to launch a website, and they did that in 1994. Effectively, I suppose what we offer in the Irish Times is quality journalism, quality news, opinion, and analysis. And what has changed over the years is really about the format in which we provide that information to our readers, that quality journalism, but the ethos and the heart of it remains the same. The challenge for us was our audience. So this picture is obviously quite a few years old, but just to illustrate where the audience were in terms of print circulation. So when people were commuting or otherwise, you would see an awful lot more printed newspapers in circulation. Our print circulation was in decline, as most other publishers were. And if we stood still, we had the risk of not surviving in terms of a sustainable business model. The audience today looks more like that. So it's people on mobile phones, on smaller screens and devices. We needed to follow where that audience was. We needed to adapt to do that. And we really needed to start charging for our online content. The previous model was only on print sales, and our online content was free. So we needed to move into a paid content model. If we look to the Irish Times, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, as I said, all our content was free online. The organisation was very much focused on the workflow of getting a printed newspaper out. The resources were put in that way. Online content went onto the website at about 1 o'clock in the morning after the printed newspaper had gone to bed. We pushed the content online. We didn't have an idea of who was reading what. And the relationship with our readers was when they walked into a shop and they bought a copy of the newspaper. So we didn't know anything about them or didn't have a direct relationship with them. In order to go to a paid subscription model, we needed to know more about our audience, know more about their behaviours and their patterns. So we started out by setting up an analytics function. We didn't have an analytics function in the Irish Times. We created a centralised function. And we looked at what data we had available to us and what we could put to use. The centralised function is key, that it is serving the various departments of editorial, of circulation, finance, general management, so that there is that single source and consistency in the data that's there. If I suppose, touch on the culture of analytics, I am a big believer in the need to adopt that culture within the organisation, probably particularly in a publisher sense. You can have all the data in the world and all the technology in the world to analyse, but it is about that if the culture isn't adopted, it won't work in that way. So a couple of the, I suppose, tips that we would have come up with when we were creating this culture is to ask the stakeholders what decisions they're making. So in terms of our editorial colleagues, what decisions do they have to make on a daily, on a weekly, on a monthly basis? And how can we use data to help them make those decisions? It doesn't work if we go to them and say, what data do you need? Because not everyone is fluent in or understanding what the data can do. So it's our job to translate that. It's our job to say, what is it that you are trying to do on a daily basis, and how can we help in informing, giving them the data that they need to make those decisions. Another key element probably goes without saying is hiring good people. But in an analytic sense, the holy grail is analysts who have strong communication skills, because this really is about building relationships, and there is a lot of skepticism around data, and again, I'd say particularly in the publishing sense, where people think it's more about clickbait and driving clickbait on site. So it's hiring those skilled analysts who are good at explaining and breaking things down to non-data users in the organization. I would also say to find the evangelists. So there are a lot of people in publishing organizations, and it's a lot of people to spread your message to. So find some key evangelists within the editorial space who can help you spread your message, who know that the data can be very beneficial and help bring other people, bring the organization along with you. We also found it useful to get a couple of quick wins. I would say there's different things that pique the interest of, say, somebody in the sports department versus the business department and the features department. So finding those quick wins, finding something that is a nugget of information that's interesting to the various people in the organization, and that will help you win people over to that idea of how the data can be used. Similarly, on building trust, I mentioned it is really about relationship building within the organization, and there is skepticism, as I said, about the data. It's really about showing that there is good use that can come out of the data. It is not the stick to beat us with or measuring in that way, and we can get very good benefits. It's helping us all to do our job and succeed, and helping the organisation to succeed. And lastly, in that context, it is very important that we are a data-informed and not a data-led organisation. So editorial integrity is absolutely key, and that is the top of the bar. So we give our colleagues the information they need to make an informed decision, but editorial integrity wins out, can win out in that sense. There are stories that we have a duty to cover, and they may not be the most read stories driving the highest traffic or subscriptions, but it is vital as our ethos in the Irish Times that we cover those stories, so that we're very much in that sense data informed and not data led. So we created the analytics function. We did a good bit of analysis on our reader behaviour. We launched a subscription model. We started off launching a metered model. So we had our meter set to, you could read 10 articles a week, and after that you needed to subscribe. That measure of 10 articles was come up with through analysis that we did on how many articles were people reading, and trying to get the sweet spot that you're not negatively impacting your traffic too much, your advertising revenue, and you're finding that cohort of users who are more likely to subscribe. So we launched a subscription model, and I suppose our first challenge then is around continuing to grow our traffic and our audience, even when having restricted that access to a paid content model. We still need that audience. They are the top of our funnel that we need to convert into potential subscribers. They are readers who will spread our message on social media and other channels, and they also help us deliver on advertising campaigns and advertising revenue, which is still very important to us. So we shifted really to a customer-centric focus, and this was discussed earlier today as well, really putting the reader in the centre of what we were doing. So who and where are our readers? What are they reading? On what devices, and how do they consume? And the data can tell us a lot. What the data can't tell us, we ask. So we carry out research in terms of asking our readers what do they want and why do they do particular things. So as an example of that in practice, and Lotte, some of it ties in very closely with what you were talking about. We looked at the time of day and the devices that our readers were consuming our content online. The blue line on this is desktop, the red line is mobile, and this is a Monday to Friday typical day, the hours at the bottom. We always had the 9 to 5 desktop audience and the lunchtime spike, and that's really what we were catering to. But you'll see on the red line on mobile that people start their day at 6 o'clock in the morning. They reach for their phone on their commute in, and then in the evening they finish the working day, say at 5 o'clock, and then they don't leave irishtimes.com. They just go to a different device or on mobile, and we get that spike into the evening time. We had this consistent 10 o'clock at night spike, which we put down to people being finished the working day, maybe finished the dinner, put the kids to bed and have some downtime. It's probably that relaxing period, and they're sitting on the couch and they have some downtime. We were publishing content at 1 o'clock in the morning to suit our organisation and our publishing schedule. That didn't make sense. So it's really about publishing the right content at the right time, to the right audience. And there is distinctions, of course, between when you publish something and when you promote something. But this informs our schedule around sending push notifications on the app. That hour of the morning is important for us, and we do say to win the morning and own the day. So if we get a good start to the day, it keeps going for us. And people are in different mindset, have more time in the evening, so we may push out more longer reads than what we'd be pushing out during the day. The formats are important in that sense of it. The homepage is a vital part during the day on desktop, but in the evening times, you're not getting people coming to your homepage. You need to reach out to other channels to get them, be it social media or otherwise, to get that audience when they're in that frame of mind. A typical Saturday looks like this. It's mainly mobile. The red line is mobile, and it's a morning spike before people go on about their business on a Saturday and stand on the sidelines of football pitches and different things like that. And then a typical Sunday, again, has a morning spike, but it also has an interesting evening spike. And we put this down to people like feeling you don't have your homework done, catching up before they go back into work on Monday. So they're catching up on what they missed over the weekend. We also find things like healthy eating recipes on Facebook work well around this time. So I think people have maybe gone out the night before, had a few drinks, had a takeaway, so they're going to be healthy for the week ahead. So different things like that can work well at that time. To help us reach our audiences. Another example of our real-time monitoring of content in action. So we used to report on performance of content the following day, and that wasn't frequent enough. So moving to real-time, this example is when Buckingham Palace announced that Prince Philip was stepping down from royal duties, or public engagements, apologies. That story was doing well on our site, but it was what we call a one and done story. You read it, you knew the story, and you were gone. So our newsroom followed up with another article with some of the more colourful remarks that Prince Philip has made over the years. And how that looks in terms of our data, the top is that first article, which, as I said, was a one and done. You read the story and you're gone. The second article elongated that story and made the interest in it live on. So that idea of how we can follow the story and continue on through it, and using the real time to see what is of interest, what is worth expanding on or not. And another example on that, and this is one of the key differences between print and online, obviously, is that content can last longer than a day. We had the Pope's visit to Ireland. We knew he was coming to Ireland. We published this article of everything you need to know about 2 weeks before he arrived. The graph on the right shows the traffic to that article and the build-up. In a print context, we only would have been publishing that the day before or 2 days before, whereas in an online context, we saw that people were interested in this. We were updating this article. It needs to have a very clear headline of what it is. It is not something that needs to be front and centre of your homepage for 2 weeks. It is about people finding it when they are looking for it. It goes back to when they're searching for something, they want to know this information. There was information around tickets, around whether you could bring an umbrella or not, whether you could bring in, so there was a lot of restrictions around this visit. So it was actually this kind of information that people were looking for. In the context of we're all probably tight on resources, we publish over 200 articles a day. It's a high volume of content, and we need to work on optimizing the content that we have. We don't have endless resources to just publish more and do more on online content. So it's about being smarter with the content that we have and getting the most out of it. Rather than getting one go at this article, we got a lot more out of it in that sense. We have actually achieved traffic growth while reducing our copy flow, so reducing the number of articles that we published, and that is no mean feat. It takes work to get to that, but it's a success from our part. Another trend we saw, and we all would have seen it, is the growth in mobile. Obviously, the growth in mobile usage, we could see that. We could see it overtaking desktop and continuing that way. So we used to be print focused and then we were online focused, but everyone was looking at desktop screens, looking at big screens for the content. So we needed to shift the editorial teams into more looking at the content on the small screen that our readers are looking at and making sure that it displays well and looks well in that context. We launched a new mobile website 2 years ago, with the main aim of being faster loading. So faster loading because people have very little patience and tolerance in terms of how that content will go. This example here is we developed an article, a long read article template for some of our longer articles. They're more image-led, there's more breaking up of the long forms of text. And again, that was designed with a mobile-first mindset, so mobile first in mind. The article on the left actually was listed on Chartbeat's list of top 100 most engaging articles last year. We were 12th on the list for that, and it was our most read article by subscribers last year as well. So we have grown our traffic while tightening the offering, or tightening the availability of content. So the next challenge is, of course, getting subscribers and continuing to grow those subscribers. The biggest factor is absolutely the content. Without question, they are subscribing because of the content that we have and the writers that we have. We, as I said, originally launched our meter offering, and then we went to more of a hybrid offering where we have our meter and we have subscriber-only content. So articles that we choose that are only available to subscribers, so logged-in subscribers. The analytics team work very closely with the editorial teams on learning what content is working. So there may be day-to-day changes where a content piece isn't working. We need to change the headline. We need to change how it's promoted. And then longer-term trends in terms of seeing what type of content is working, what types of authors are working. Working to drive new subscribers and also working to hold on to the subscribers that we have. So if a reader hits a subscriber-only article or a meter, they get the modal message that's on the right there. They come to our storefront to take out a subscription. So our offerings are standard digital subscription is €12 a month, premium digital is €16 a month, and the difference there is e-paper. And then we offer print bundles as well to our customers in Ireland, so that's home delivery in addition to that, so digital access plus a Saturday delivery or Monday to Saturday delivery. In this example, we ran a campaign with the New York Times. So if you took out a subscription to the Irish Times, you got a 12-month subscription to the New York Times as well, and that campaign worked very well for us. Another campaign example we did the previous year was with a free Amazon Echo Dot. We like to choose partners that are aligned with the Irish Times, that are not necessarily competing, but are kind of a companion offering to it. And those campaigns have worked very well for us. We also allow people to purchase gift subscriptions. Again, Christmas Eve is our biggest sales day for that. It's very much a last-minute printable present, and Father's Day is the other time when that really works well. And we do offer free subscriptions to third-level students, to college students. So this is partly to do our bit for education, the future of education, but it's also our future subscribers. So if we can get our students using our product, when they graduate college, when they finish, we offer them a half-price subscription to really to get them into, as I said, using the product, and then they are, as I said, the future of our subscribers. We do have different storefronts for different currencies. We have euro, obviously, and we have UK sterling and US dollars. In this example, we're running a half-price offer. We don't like to do price promotions too often. We don't like to devalue our offering. Our journalism and the quality is worth paying for. But we have quite a large diaspora in Ireland, and our readers outside Ireland don't always consume as much as readers in Ireland. So we kind of go with different messaging, and the half-price offers in that case worked well. In addition to unlimited content access to the Irish Times, subscribers also get exclusive newsletters. So we have a politics newsletter that they get written by our politics team. They have online crossword access. They have archive access. We have an extensive archive as a 160-year-old company. They get subscriber rewards and they get exclusive events, which again prove very popular. People always want to meet our journalists, to be able to talk to them, to be able to converse with them in that way. So we find those ways work in terms of growing the subscriber base that we have. The next challenge then, of course, is holding on to those subscribers. So you put so much work into getting your subscribers, and we all know that it costs more, obviously, to acquire a new subscriber than to hold on to an existing subscriber. The biggest key or factor for us in this is usage. So the biggest predictor of somebody who's likely to churn is that their usage level goes down or goes below the level at which we want it to be at. They need to be reading enough content that merits them having a subscription, because we do also give content for free under our meter. So the usage element is we identify subscribers who are at risk of churn. And our customer care team then makes outbound calls to those subscribers to check in that everything is okay, to check that they're using the product enough. I mentioned earlier the list of elements that people have access to. So if they're using the app as well as the website, if they're using the crossword and the archives, they're getting the most value out of their subscription, and that does help them out. In terms of churn then in general though, I suppose we talk about it in two senses. So there's voluntary and involuntary churn, or I've heard it called passive and active cancellation as well. So the voluntary cancellation is, I don't want to have an Irish Times subscription anymore. And the involuntary is to do with payment reasons. It's very frustrating to lose people who don't want to go, but it's to do with payment reasons. So we have a number of technology tools in place to help combat that. We use a service called Card Updater, which updates credit cards whose expiry date is coming up. So there's an automatic update on the expiry date on credit cards, which helps. And the other tool we use is a payment retry process. So if a payment fails on renewal, we will try that account for a 12-day period at different intervals. We will email the subscriber at various points, and we have found text message or SMS very successful in this way, to contact the subscriber and say there's a problem on the account, and directing them to update their card details themselves. And that's been our most successful way, I suppose, of holding on to as many subscribers as we can who are coming into payment issues. It is usually something that the payment is due 2 days before payday or something like that, and 3 days later the payment comes out fine. On voluntary cancellation, which is they don't want to have a subscription anymore, that is a bit harder. We don't allow currently self-service cancellation. The subscriber needs to email or phone our customer care team in order to cancel, and that's where the customer care team are crucial in terms of holding on to subscribers, holding on to them, or if not, at least finding out their reasons why, because that helps inform us on our future strategy in terms of what the benefits are of the subscription, the packages that we offer. Oftentimes it's that they don't have time, subscribers don't have time for their subscription. We very rarely hear price as the reason, and our pricing structure is similar to the likes of Netflix and Spotify and others in that way. But the customer care element is definitely something that has changed over the years, where our customer service team had mainly been dealing with retailers, with shops and their delivery, whereas now our customer care team have direct relationship with our readers. They are the ear and the voice of our readers, so it's a very important function, and there is an expectation as well that the Irish Times will have a high level of customer care. So it's important that we get that right. So just on some of the key learnings, I suppose to kind of recap a little bit on that. Again, I'm a big believer in the democratization of data within the organisation. So I don't believe that the analytics team just holds on to the data and has the keys of it. It's very important that it gets out. We have editorial conferences or editorial meetings 3 times a day that are led out by the analytics team. So at 8:30 in the morning, at 12:30 and at 4 o'clock. That conference used to be at 12 o'clock in the afternoon and focusing on print, but it got earlier and earlier and switching to an online focus. The analytics team lead that out, talking about how yesterday performed and how today is performing so far. The democratization of data also means giving it to people in an accessible way. We don't want to just give them reams of data that there's no context on. So it's making it easily understandable for people, because people don't want to feel like they're asking stupid questions. And I always say there's no stupid questions around the data. Similar to that then, having KPIs related to subscriptions. So we have done this in the context of traffic and page views and knowing how articles are performing, but bringing the subscription message into the conversations on a much more regular basis so that people become comfortable talking about it. So in those editorial meetings, as well as how articles performed, our most read articles, we also look at what was most read among our subscribers, what converted subscribers, how many subscribers did we get yesterday, and how did our subscriber-only content perform? Because we don't want it to be alien conversation for people. We need the whole organization on the same page in that sense for the future of the business. I already mentioned data informed and not data led. It's always worth repeating that. And then the writers and topics in terms of knowing what converts subscribers and knowing what holds on to subscribers. So for us in Ireland, Brexit was a particularly topical topic. We had a lot of readers from the UK as well coming over to read the Irish perspective, but it also very much affects Ireland, and that has been something that has also driven subscriptions for us. Other types of content that have worked are around functional or life guides, things like parenting advice, financial tips and advice. And again, we would count this type of content as evergreen content. So it has a much longer lifespan than just the day that it was published. So that content works harder for you. Explainers is another article type where often people feel like the story has moved on too much for them and they're too late to get into it. And people want to kind of an explainer. What is the story here? So we needed to write shorter pieces with more accessible language, very much aimed at, as I said, a mobile type of audience. One that has been one of our most read has been, what is the backstop? So the backstop in a Brexit context. Every time the backstop was mentioned in EU Parliament or in the UK, an article that one of our journalists wrote kept coming back because people were searching Google going, what is the backstop? What does this mean? So that article has done well for us. And again, then, as I mentioned, managing churn. You spend so much effort and resources, as I said, acquiring these subscribers. So it's very important to focus efforts on holding on to them. We have reached 90,000 subscribers now, which we're very proud of. So with the increase in traffic, the reduction in the number of articles we're publishing, and 90,000 direct relationships with subscribers is something we're not complacent about. We need to continue growing that, and we need to focus on holding on to that audience. But we are proud of what we've achieved. It'll be our 5-year anniversary of subscriptions is next month, so we're proud of that. I suppose to illustrate that journey and where we've come, what we have on the left there is the printed edition of the Irish Times. This example is when our leader of our main political party announced he was stepping down. We used to obviously just do the printed newspaper. Now what we're doing is we have our very fast mobile website. We have video content from our political journalists in that example. We have newsletter exclusive to our subscribers about politics every day. We have podcast on it. We use social media to promote our content. In this case, it was profiles of the two leaders. As well as all of that, we still do a 4-page supplement in print because we still have the print product that's very important to us. We are asking, obviously, a lot more of our journalists now, where it used to be the written word and now it's all of these elements. But that's really about putting the reader at the center of what we're doing and being cognizant of what do they want, what format do they want it in. They are time poor, they're on the go, and really thinking of them and how we can meet their needs in terms of growing our audience in that way. The last thing just to mention is we actually launched a new development on site last week, which is listen mode for the Irish Times. So this really came out of research and insights, and even just looking and seeing the amount of people on their commute or otherwise with their earphones in, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks. Again, we were at risk of losing our audience because they were moving on ahead of us and we weren't there. So we did some intensive development over the last few months months on launching Listen Mode. So it is audio articles from the Irish Times, as well as our podcast, which we have had anyway. But again, as I said, aimed at that probably attracting a younger audience as well, but appealing to our existing audience as well. So it's not all articles that we're going to have an audio version of, but we're very excited about it and kind of keen to see where that goes, and that's where we'll be developing in future as well. So that's it from me, just to give you a little bit of information on the Irish Times journey so far. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you.